In this video, I'm going to be talking about how the ego works and how in my past, my ego has talked me out of decisions or choices that I knew were best for me to make in order to keep me safe when it really didn't. So welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Adam. I'm a divine freedom and clarity coach. One of the things that's been coming up for me recently is as I, go to expand into more levels of my life, more levels of my business, there are always these little voices inside of my head that try to stop me. And this is something that I've become very familiar with, working with myself, working with clients, how the ego operates, because the ego is a master. It's an absolute master of deception. And what it does is it tries to keep us safe. It thinks it's trying to keep us safe. It's not really conscious, and that's one of the tricks to understand about it. We will oftentimes have an impulse that for something for our highest good, and then a whole bunch of fear or trauma will come up, and what the ego basically does is it takes the fear and the trauma in the emotional or astral bodies, and it comes up with reasons for why it's necessary for us not to take whatever step we want to take, because it's just kind of identifying and clarifying and rationalizing the emotion. But the trick to understand is the emotion, the fear, the resistance that comes up is the resistance to the new version of us that wants to land. And the thing to really get is usually the bigger the fear, the more the trauma, the bigger the breakthrough. So the bigger the breakdown, the bigger the breakthrough. It's how energy works. It's like you can't increase one side of the polarity without increasing the other. So if you go to expand into the light like this, you're also going to expand this aspect of you into the dark. And really the dark is just what you're not conscious of. On some level, there's no light and there's no dark. But in polarity, which we're still a little bit in, there is. So when you go to expand and take a step or set an intention to go this much into the light, this much of the dark comes up. So the bigger this is, the more fear or resistance comes up. I've noticed this with myself over and over and over again. And when we first take this step, then all of a sudden we go over here and we experience all of this. And this is usually when we talk ourselves out of things. I've done it many times because it's like there's so much resistance, there's so much anxiety, there's so much whatever there is that we're like, okay, this isn't right for me. The thing is, oftentimes, it's exactly what's right for us. And it's the fear and the rationalization that's trying to keep us from doing what's right for us only because of ignorance. It's just ignorance. I'm not judging anybody, but ignorance is just what we don't really know or understand. So we have a belief about something. We have a perception that because we feel afraid, because we feel nervous, that it's a bad thing. It's not. There's no way to evolve without going through the fear. One of the biggest misperceptions that a lot of light workers and empaths have, and this is something I've had, is that you can just simply clear all the fear first before taking the next step. You can't. You can't. The next step is what brings up what's in the way. So when you go to take a step and all this stuff comes up, that's part of the process. And when you embrace this, even if it's difficult and you go anyway, this dissolves. If you don't, then you go back to where you were before. Oftentimes, that's just how it goes. I'll give you a couple examples. One was many years ago when I was working for this narcissistic boss. And there were actually a lot of gifts in this experience. He helped me a lot in many ways. I don't just want to talk shit about him, but it was extremely difficult working for this person. He was very abusive. He was very condescending, very judgmental. He was hatefully angry at me all the time, energetically. And being empathic, it was very difficult to even exist in his energy field at all. And this nightmare of a situation came in. This girl came to work for us. I thought she was my partner. I thought she was a soulmate. The whole thing blew up in my face. It was an awful situation where she was pitting me off against him and lying to everybody and manipulating all of us. But what she ended up doing was she had kind of given me the opportunity to get out of that job because I was treated so poorly. It turns out she was an active drug addict at the time, and like her motives were not in anywhere near pure. But what happened was, because I was treated so awfully, I had the opportunity to leave then. I had the opportunity to be like, you know what? Thank you, universe, for abusing me so badly that I now have the impulse and the clear impulse and the knowing that it's time for me to get out of this. But because I was so scared, I didn't leave. I stayed for another year and a half until I got another opportunity later. Now, I had all these reasons at the time why I couldn't leave. I had job security. I was very sick. I didn't feel well. I didn't have any energy. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen if I took the leap at that time. And I can go back now in retrospect and tell whatever story I want. I can be very compassionate to myself then and be like, well, maybe it just wasn't time, and maybe it wasn't. And it's okay, because there's no right or wrong. Whatever choice we make from any point in time, we can transform the choice by telling a new story and forgiving ourselves. But very likely, there was a good opportunity for me back then to shift out of that and go somewhere else. But I talked myself out of it because the discomfort was too much. And this is one of the biggest things for empaths especially. We tend to avoid discomfort. And we want to feel safe. We want to feel comfortable. Of course we do. But when the discomfort is coming up because we're going to a space that ultimately will be more joyful and comfortable, it's just one of those things where it's like, when we're aware of that, then, and we have certain tools, we can take the step anyway. And we will see that as we do, things get way better. Because again, the more the resistance, the more the breakthrough potential. Another example of this was I had a job many years ago as a surfer. I've told this story before. And I'd been working for a couple years, and I was in very good standing at the time, but I was starting to do ayahuasca. I was going through a spiritual awakening. I was having major health issues, and the stress of the job was just way too much, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I knew I needed to take a break. I just knew I needed some time off, at least to rest and kind of figure out whether I still wanted to be a server anymore, because it wasn't right for me to be a server, and I kind of knew that. So I went to the GM and I was like, listen, is it okay if I take a month off? I really need some time, to take care of myself. And he was like, well, I can't just give you a month off, blah, blah, blah. And then he actually he came back a couple days later. He's like, you know what? Good news. I figured out how to do it. It's okay. You can take a month off. And then my ego, because I was afraid if I took the month off, I wouldn't have enough money, talked me into staying. And when it talked me into staying, what happened was I began to short circuit, which I knew was going to happen. Like, I was so sick and unhealthy, I couldn't really handle my body. I couldn't handle all the new energy that was coming in. I couldn't handle the energy in the restaurant. And because of that, I manifested getting fired in a not very honorable, but kind of funny way in retrospect. But that was what happened because I didn't listen to the impulse that the universe was sending me, and my ego, my finite self that was comfortable in the space or box that I was in, talked me out of moving forward through that fear and taking that leap. It comes up later anyway, like I said, but oftentimes if you don't take the step then, the message from the universe gets louder and the struggle can get bigger. It just depends, on what's going on. But this is important to understand. So if you have extreme resistance to taking a new step in your life, or you want to start a new business, or you want to do some healing, or you want to enter into a relationship with somebody, and all of a sudden there's all these reasons why you shouldn't and why you can't, it's really important to question, where are those reasons coming from? And in fact, these reasons, as an aspect of the rationalizing ego, tend to be the essence of addiction. Because addiction is not just related to drugs, to alcohol, to food. Addiction essentially is the same thought pattern over and over and over again, a very rigid thought pattern. And anytime we go to break out of that pattern, because there's so much familiarity in the energy of it and in the neural networks we formed in our brain, we kind of short circuit. And as we short circuit, we get afraid because we go into uncertainty. But when we can step back a little bit and detach from it and enter into more of a space of silence and presence and allowing the unfamiliarity to occur and the uncertainty to occur, that's when the spark of the divine comes in, the spark of invention comes in, the spark of creativity comes in, and we get a new idea. That's breaking the addiction, breaking the old habit thought pattern to go to God in the silence, essentially, and find something new. But if we don't break the old patterns and step back and identify that they're rote, repeating, repetitive cycles that are not serving us anymore, and we give in to the fear and to the trauma, we don't have those breakthroughs. We don't have the revelation. We don't get the realization. We don't get the new energy that shifts our life in another direction. So I would just ask yourself, where is your mind trying to keep you safe? And be gentle with it and be kind, because it's just trying to help you. It's just not doing a very good job at it. It believes that if you take a new step, you're going to hurt yourself. But is that true? Is that really true? When you even ask your mind, is that true? You start to open the pathways and the doorways to a new idea and a new revelation and a new way of thinking. That's the end of addiction, is new ways to think. So look at where in your life you're rationalizing staying where you are, staying small, staying in a relationship that doesn't serve you anymore, staying in a job, preventing yourself from taking a leap in the direction of what you really want. Because the price for that is going all in for yourself. The price for that is the fear of jumping into a new reality. It's never going to feel perfectly safe and secure because it's new. So you're uncertain about it. So know that when that step comes in the direction of what you love and what you're most passionate about, it's not necessarily going to only feel perfectly blissful. There's going to be some fear. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if you had any revelations or breakthroughs. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I have a free energy clearing in the description below. Other than that, thank you so much. I look forward to next time. Peace.